Hey, hey, hey. So I'm very excited about this video. I decided instead of putting pressure on myself to record videos in the morning, I'm going to do them at night. So I'm recording all of my stuff at night as I get accustomed to posting more. Please have grace with me with the audio because I'm really getting back into the vlogging. I'm very, very rusty. So I want to talk about how to hear God's voice. A lot of people ask me this a lot. So I want to give you some tips and some advice, and this is going to help you. So I'm excited for you. So a few things. After you listen to this video, you are going to start hearing from God now, today, right now. You're going to start hearing from God. I'm going to tell you how you're going to be able to hear, how you know it's God, how you can be confident in it, how you can vibe in it, so it's going to be super fun. So, plot twist, you are already hearing from God. We are God's creation. The natural realm and the spiritual realm both mirror each other. The spiritual realm and the natural realm used to be one. It has been disconnected. So I'm going to share with you how you can hear from God. It's actually really simple. It's very easy. God is very easy going. Let me tell you a couple of cool things about the Lord. The Lord is very easy. He's easygoing. God is here for you. He loves you. God wants to have a relationship with you. He wants to vibe with you. He wants to be involved in your world. He wants to be involved in the everyday activities of your life. God does not speak in fear. God does not speak in panic. So I want to help you be able to hear his voice. So some of the ways that you already hear from God, gut instinct, that's God. Impressions, say if you have like a lingering thought that's not rooted in fear, one of the number one things is like you just have this vibe like, I don't think I'm gonna go to that show tonight, or something told me not to hang out with this person. Those are all impressions that you get from God. I would say those gut instincts. As you mature the voice from hearing from God, I always say, and I have mastered this. Well, I don't want to say I mastered it because you grow in the things of God. And I have been really pushing my faith to the max. I do a lot of things to invest in it. I do a lot of jumping in faith. I take a lot of risk. I do a lot of stuff in the name of the Lord that he tells me to kind of challenge myself to not rely on my natural instincts or my natural ability. But you want God's voice to be the loudest voice in your life. What I always tell people, when you pray, when you're vibing, or even if you just have just general questions in life, whatever the first thought that enters into your mind, that's God's voice. It's the first. So what I do is I nurture the first. Me and my mom do this thing where like, what's the first thought? So you know how you pray in every situation, or if you're in a situation and you're not sure what to do, whatever that first thought is, that first impression, that's God. Now, what I always tell people, the reason why the tips I'm going to give you, I'm going to help you to nurture the voice where it's stronger, because you do have the enemy and then you have your own voice. So sometimes people are not confident in their ability to hear from God because you have your doubts, you have your circumstances, you have the devil who's always in your mind, always trying to throw targets and darts to your mind. So I'm going to show you how you can navigate through all of that, and it's super easy. The stuff I'm going to tell you, you're going to be like, child, that's it? The Lord's going to be talking to you, because I already told the Lord. I was like, Lord, I'm telling them how they can hear your voice. I want you to encounter them. Show up for them like immediately after they stop listening to this video. As they're listening to the video, start flashing incidents in their life where you've been talking to them. And this is not going to be no one-time thing. God don't talk to you just in emergency. God don't talk to you just in crisis. This thing is, you set the measure with God. You set the measure. You could be vibing so much with God. God will actually show me what he wants me to eat the next day. I'll get flashes. I've been on this, so this is so random. God kept showing me eating a certain type of dish with seaweed, like the wraps that you use with sushi. Started doing some research on it. Seaweed is loaded with iodine. So I know, so like he kept flashing it. So one day I went to the store, so let me just try it. And the way I made my food was identical to the flash he showed me. God will give you turn by turn directions in your life. And it doesn't always have to be like horrible stuff. God will show you good stuff. And then there's different dimensions of hearing from God. So so let's talk about because I don't want to start rambling. So let me tell you the different ways you can hear from God. So I believe God speaks to you through your personality. So the way the Bible is written, one of the versions, which is the King James Version, God spoke in that terminology for that time, because that's where, King James, the thou is, that was that time. God speaks to you through your personality. I laugh sometimes when I see people say all the stuff God said, and it's like super duper like, thou, thus. I'm like, God talks to you on your personality and on your level. And then sometimes too, like when I see God wants a relationship with you. God is not a robot. I see people saying the same kind of talking point or the same kind of Christian jargon, the same kind. God reveals himself to you based on your personality. So I watched the Jamie Foxx stand up, and I laughed because it's raunchy. It's very raunchy. It's very heartfelt, especially for people who have struggled with their health or had a medical crisis. But it was so cute because I said he had an encounter with God because God came through for him on his level. God's not going to be like, oh, my child. God does not. He talks to you and he reveals himself to you. So as you are developing this relationship with God and you're vibing with God, he's going to encounter you based on your personality. So let me tell you the different ways. So God can talk to you audibly, where it's a voice. God can talk to you in visions. God can talk to you in dreams. Visions and dreams are not these abnormal experiences. They're insight into the spiritual realm. God can talk to you in visions. God can talk to you in dreams. God can talk to you through impressions. God can talk to you through reading the word. One of the most common ways God can talk to you as you start building your faith when you go to church. One of the things, excuse me, the church I'm a part of now, I'm a streamer because I don't live in the state that they're at. But when I used to go to church, before I used to say, Lord, I'm expecting to hear from you. I used to pray before I used to go because me and the pastors had beef. So I used to pray before I used to go. God used to force me to this church. And every time through the message, God would speak directly through my op. I'm kidding. I'm very dramatic. They would speak directly through them and I would get exactly what I would need. That's one of the ways you can start building the voice that way as well. So let's get into it. How can you hear from God? So there's three things. I have three tips. The first tip I'm going to share with you is that you want to have a relationship with God. So what you want to do is be super open with the Lord and say, hey, God, I want to hear from you. I want to start to have a communication pattern with you. Invite God into your world, invite him into relationship and let him know, I want to hear from you. I want to know who you are. I want it to be so tangible in my life. I don't want to just do life my way, my goals, my dreams. Those are all cute and you do back what I want. But I want to be encountered by you. I want you to vibe with me throughout my life. Invite God in, because honestly, God just wants a relationship with you. So you want to do that first. That's one of the first things I would recommend. Second thing, a few things too. God is not transactional. God does not care about behavior. So I got a lot of people who email me, message me and say, you're like telling the wrong stuff. That's not true. Listen to me carefully. God does not care about behavior. I run into a lot of, how should I say this? I run into a lot of entitled, critical Christians and believers. And they feel entitled to certain things in their life because they've made certain decisions in their life. So your lifestyle and your behavior is for you. It's not for God. So sometimes when you're in the faith, you can feel entitled that you're supposed to have certain things because you did certain things in the faith. So say you don't smoke, you don't drink, you're not, I don't get in people's business because I don't judge, but the Christian things. You live like a cookie cutter Christian lifestyle, because I don't want to be singling out people and their stuff. Everybody has different journeys. You have to journey through this with God. They feel because they don't do those things that they're entitled to certain things. And if they don't get what they feel like they're entitled to, that's when they start to become critical, miserable. God has, because I don't want to act like I'm promoting recklessness, because I'm not. God has things in place that he tells us that he doesn't want us to get involved in. It's to protect us. It's not, you don't get like a terrific Christian kid award because you don't do certain things. There's just certain things God puts in place, like, hey, don't do this, hey, don't do that, to protect us. It's not to follow him, or I'm not a huge fan of like behavior, and this is like really no shade to nobody, but I really don't even like when people celebrate themselves. Like, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I'm celibate, that's good. I'm glad that you do that. But we're not really supposed to be bragging on our righteousness. Our righteousness is rags compared to Christ. We're not the standard. But let me get back to God's voice. So that's why I always say I'm challenging an ideal. God don't care about behavior. Your behavior, your lifestyle, your choices, that is to protect you. Okay? So let me go on to the next thing. So number one, you want to have a relationship with God. You want to make it known to God, and do it tonight. As soon as you finish listening to this, say, God, I want to start hearing from you now. Write him a letter. If you're not confident to speak out loud, talk to him. Don't put it in your mind. Start speaking out. God, I give you permission to start speaking to me. I invite you into my world. So that's number one. Number two, another thing you want to do too, this is what I tell people, because I know everybody has different measures of faith. You have some people who go to church, they have an idea of who God is, they know somebody who really know the Lord like that, but they haven't really been able to experience it on a tangible individual basis. I always tell people, when you out here riding for God, ask him to encounter you. Tell God, I want you to encounter me. I just want you to come through, encounter me, so that I can know who you are for myself. So have those conversations as you invite him into your world. The other two ways you can hear from God for certainty. The second thing I always tell people, now, these last two things are what I call God things. So I always encourage people to not attempt to do any God thing without having a relationship with God, because he will guide you through the God thing. So the second thing I always say is fasting. Those who know God, oh yeah, God talked to me when I was 12. I know who God is. I'm just trying to get back on track. Go on a fast. Go on a fast. Disconnect yourself from the natural realm so that you can strengthen and have more sensitivity in the spiritual realm. You can go on a spiritual fast where you cut off social media, cut off TV, disconnect from your friends, maybe go away for a weekend, or just spend time to yourself for a weekend and just say, this weekend, I'm not eating, I'm turning down my plate. I would suggest, there's nothing wrong with 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. but we want to kind of push your desperation point. I would say do a minimum of at least a 72-hour fast, because most of us have gone a whole day without eating. Some people have gone maybe 2 days without eating. When you get to that third day of eating, your body wants to kind of rip itself apart because you have no food in your, all the food is gone. And that, when you do a sacrifice like that, God comes through each time. I believe when you fast, God automatically appears, his voice is stronger, and God answers the prayers you haven't even prayed yet. There's prayers that we all have that we probably are like, I'm not going to waste God's time with this. God doesn't care about this. Those prayers we don't have the confidence to pray. I believe when you fast and you get in God's face, I personally believe he answers the prayers. So I always tell people the first fast I ever did, I did a 7-day fast, and it was a struggle, honey, because I love food. But I did a 7-day fast. I locked myself in my house for 7 days, didn't talk to nobody, didn't call nobody, didn't eat, just in God's face, worship this. And when I did that, I did this in 2016. I had like a 8-year head start of what was going to happen in my life and how to prepare for it. 8 year, I got stuff from God that's happening in my life now when I did that fast. And when I closed the fast, God wiped out $67,000 worth of debt in my name. I didn't even ask God about that debt because I'm like, I'm not even going to waste God's time with it. He went ahead and knocked it out for me. Anytime you lay something down, there's no such thing as loss with God. Anytime you lay something down for God and it's not robotic, you're not really coming up in there trying to boss the Lord around because you're not eating. You're just trying to hear from God. Like, I went on a fast for my business, and God spent that whole fast talking to me about my health. I didn't even know I was sick at the time. I didn't get diagnosed until 2 years later. So go on a fast. When you go on a fast, all fasting does is disconnects yourself from the natural realm, so you have sensitivity to the spiritual realm, and it gives room for God to come through. And then the third thing I would recommend is to operate in forgiveness. Now, fasting and forgiveness are two supernatural experiences. You cannot do a fast and you cannot forgive without God empowering you to do it. You know, I was reading this book. There's like new ministers and stuff on TikTok and stuff. I read this book and I immediately couldn't even get past the third page because the book was just written and like bloodlines and generational curses, and she was telling people to repent of abortions and that. I was thinking to myself, you cannot do any of this stuff without having a relationship with God, because he is the one that's going to show you. When you get in God's face and you invite him into your world, and if you fast or whatever your vibe is, how you start with this communication with him after you develop a relationship, which you can do tonight, which I want you to do tonight. When you do this, God is going to bring you the stuff. You don't have to go back in your past and drag out all this stuff to God. And, if you, while you're on your forgiving path, if you're having if it's a trauma dump, if you feel like killing yourself baby, invite God in. Be like, when you start vibing with God, and that's why I want you to start talking to him, he will show you. He will bring it to you. God will bring it to you. God will guide you through it. So the reason why you want to forgive, let me tell you why you want to forgive. You want to forgive because, one, when you have unforgiveness, the devil has an upper hand in your life. So what does that mean? When you have unforgiveness and you're holding on to stuff, the devil has a legal authority to hold up your prayers. When you release a prayer into the heavens, this is what God showed me during COVID. When a prayer is released into the heavens, first of all, prayers don't leave the spiritual realm. When you release a prayer, God immediately answers it, and it's sent back down to the natural realm. It goes through a second heaven. If there's any unforgiveness, what happens in the second heaven, the devil holds that prayer as a technicality. So people don't understand how much the devil is obsessed with us. He has files and cases on us. So if you believe in God for a healing, it goes into the realms. God answers it. It comes right down to the second heaven. And the devil is searching through it to see if there's any legal course he has to hold your prayer. When you have unforgiveness, he has legal authority to hold your prayers. God showed me this vision in 2020. He showed me that there's people who have made prayers and their prayers are pending for 20 years in the realms of the spirit because of unforgiveness. Forgiveness gives you higher spiritual ranking, and forgiveness also helps you to hear clear. Because this is what God told me when I was recording this video the first time. I've been a little frustrated recording this because my audio has been trash. When you have unforgiveness, God said your pain is the loudest voice in your life. Your experiences are the loudest voice in your life. There's more to life and there's more to God than what you have experienced. So when you live a life of unforgiveness, you have bitterness. You have a root of bitterness on the inside of you. You're always rehearsing yesterday. You're blinded by your pain. It's very hard to hear from God if you have that. So sometimes people will say they're having a hard time discerning if it's me, if it's God, is it me, is it God? It's because you haven't nurtured the voice. So one of the things that I'm very blessed of doing, just from having a relationship with God and allowing him to encounter me, allowing God to challenge my ideals, because God will challenge the way you think. He'll challenge how you feel, how you think things should be. You have to give God room to do these things. But one of the things that I'm blessed that I have a clear conscience. My conscience is clear. I can hear clear. I don't have thoughts that weigh me down. I don't have anxiety. The reason why I don't have any of these, because the devil doesn't have the legal authority to place it on me. You know, I recently came back from my mom turned 60 and we had this brilliant idea, like we're going to do 2 vacations back to back. And I remember when I was on vacation, one of my favorite things to do is I love listening to the water. I just chill on the beach, listen to the water. I don't need music. I don't even need a book. I can just chill. And most people will think like, oh, she's so boring. I'm not boring. I have a clear conscience. I make room. I'm very sensitive to God. The reason why I be telling y'all all the stuff the Lord be telling me, because I'm sensitive to it. I've allowed him to encounter me. And then I strengthen the voice by doing the stuff I'm telling you to do. And then this is my final advice. And I'm going to be honest, and I want to give you advice that's from the heart, and I want to be real. Like, this is no fluff. Let me be for real with you. Fasting and forgiving, a lot of people don't have the spiritual fortitude to do that, or the spiritual stamina to do that. Sometimes the pain in your life is so heavy, you can't even think straight. I am a woman who endures pain. God has allowed pain in my life. And I used to think, I don't even believe in reincarnation, but I used to be like, oh my God, it's something that I did in the past life. What? I had to have done something to deserve this kind of pain. I've had to have done something to deserve this kind of bleeding, this hemorrhaging, these blood clots that are the size of eggplants coming out of my body. There's something I've had to done. Oh my God, it's in my bloodline. Oh my God, it's somebody in my generation did something. No, baby. Anytime. That's why you have a relationship with the Lord, because he will guide you through stuff. Sometimes the pain in your life, it puts a hold on everything. Sometimes you go through so much pain, you can't even think straight. You be like, was that the Lord? No, I'm kidding. So I say that to say, everybody is coming from different levels and walks of faith. God knows that. God's mercy is new every day. Jesus stands, when you pray and stuff and you reach out to God, Jesus is right there advocating for you, pleading mercy on your case and your defense. So I say that to say everybody doesn't have this spiritual fortitude to go on a fast. How can you, Jamie, expect me to hear from a God that I don't even feel like knows me? I used to feel very overlooked by God. I started this journey with the Lord very young. I was in my 20s, and I used to always want to hear from God, like, oh my God, why is everybody... I used to think that God's voice was only limited to an altar call. So I remember I used to go to all the altar calls. I used to do all the cute Christian stuff. I used to double up in ministries. I used to volunteer. I was like, I'm getting God's attention. I want God to hear from me. I remember I used to go to all the altar calls, and everybody would get a prophecy, a word from God. And when the person comes to me, they'll say, it's a new season. Go take your seat. And I used to be pissed. I used to go to all the wealth transfer lines. And I remember I said, why isn't the Lord talking to me? I remember my friends, they were like, Jamie, we think you're brainwashed. Why are you so psycho? What are you talking about? You don't listen to music no more. You don't want to go out no more. I'm like, no, I'm trying to hear from the Lord. I did all the cute Christian rules, every single one of them, and I didn't hear anything. I felt overlooked. I felt like the Lord didn't know who I was. I was like, oh, this stuff don't work. It don't work for me. And I started to invite God into my world and encounter him and challenge him, put him to the test, and God came through for me. So that's what I want you to do. Don't focus on the rules. Don't focus on what you do. For those who don't have the spiritual fortitude to do these experiences, it's okay. God knows that. God is easy. But this is what I want you to do. I want you to be open and honest with God. Even if you're mad at God. I have a lot of people that be hit me up and they tell me all the stuff the Lord did wrong since the day they've been born and they done with the Lord. And I always tell people, tell the Lord. What you telling me for? Tell God. Have the balls to tell him. I'm kidding. I told my homeboy that. Don't be telling me. Don't come to me. Don't come to me by my Lord and Savior. I stopped cussing people out over God. The Lord had to come correct me. He was like, Jamie, you can't be cussing people out in my name. But I want you to be open and honest. Be real, be vulnerable, be yourself. Don't try to take nobody else's prayers. Don't try to take nobody else's talking points or Christian jargon that everybody uses. Take a weekend, take a night, take tomorrow, lock yourself in a room. Tell the Lord, I want to hear from you. I'm not leaving until I hear from you. And be real. Express your frustrations. Tell the Lord, I feel like I'm overlooked. I feel like you don't know who I am. I feel like I don't know who you are. I need you to come through for me. Some of us are scared to face tomorrow. When you have that type of pressure, the pressure and the circumstances of life on your back, you don't have time to research no bloodline. I remember when the doctors came and told me I had a rare form of uterine cancer that had a less than 5% survival rate. Most women who get diagnosed with that are dead quick because it's a soft tissue cancer. It's a very rare form. When they came back and told me that, my mind went to all the double cheeseburgers I ate for breakfast. I said, oh my God, it's the double cheeseburgers. It's the brownies I ate for breakfast. And the Lord said, we don't have time to rehearse what happened yesterday. This is how you're going to get out the hospital today. Sometimes you need God to move now. When my belly was so big that I couldn't breathe in 2018, I was in Georgia. And I told the Lord, scriptures and confessions to the side. Because I was doing all the cute Christian things. I was going to sleep listening to Creflo's Healing Scripture YouTube video. I was waking up trying to do Miles Monroe fast. I was doing Cindy Trim prayer. I was doing all the cute Christian things. And I came to the end of myself. And I said, Lord, confessions aside. I had little index cards with scriptures, stuttering through all of them. I got all the scriptures mixed up. I said, child, I'm toast. I don't know how to fight this. I went through all of that, and I got real with the Lord, and I said, confessions aside, I need you to move on this in 24 hours. I cannot face tomorrow. There was women who were diagnosed the same time as me and had already died at that point. Lord, I need you to move on this. I need you to tell me what to do. When you invite God and you're honest and you're vulnerable and you get real, God's going to come through. And this is not going to be a once in a moment lifetime. This is not going to be you only hear from God once every 5 years. You're going to develop and orchestrate a relationship with him going forward. That's not based on rules. God is not looking for rule followers. God is looking for hearts, and he's looking for vessels. And you're going to vibe with him, and you don't have to be perfect. Don't put pressure on yourself. If you smoke, you drink, you got your boyfriend living with you, it's okay. Invite God in and go through the process and the journey. God is not riding with you based on your behavior. God just wants you to know that he's with you. He knows where you're at, and it's a process. God used a prostitute. God used someone who's killed someone. God, you can always cop a plea with the Lord. I'm not trying to promote recklessness, but I'm just trying to because if God can come through in your life, if you give room for God now, 2 years, 5 years from now, there's no telling what's going to come and what's going to birth from it. So develop a relationship with him. It's a process. It's a journey. You know, when you start talking to God, you're not going to automatically turn into Joyce Myers tomorrow. You walk your own walk with God and you vibe with him. And another thing that I love about the Lord that I feel like people don't talk about enough, his mercy is new every single day. God measures and he weighs on why we do what we do. You know, the systems of the world, they judge everybody the same on the same acts. If everybody has the same symptoms, everybody's body is treated the same. If somebody kills somebody, or if somebody performs something, or if you're this, or if you're that, they treat everybody the same. With God, it's not like that. He weighs and he measures and he applies the law on how He's a sovereign God. He's a merciful God. And he's not out of reach. So I don't want you to think that God is up there looking at your tea and being like, He's not. He's not judgmental. He weighs. He measures. And the same way he weighs and measures on what you do, that's even with the good stuff. You know, God is always searching the motivation of why you do the things that you do. So that's why I'm not a behavior girl. I could care less about behavior. Because I used to be a super duper transactional cookie cutter Christian. And I didn't have no compassion. Well, no. I had compassion, but I didn't move on it. But I was a super duper cookie cutter transactional Christian that had this long laundry list of all the stuff the Lord needed to do for me in my prayer closet before 12 o'clock. And I felt like that he has to do it. I was entitled to it because I felt like, well, I serve in this ministry. I do this. I give. I'm entitled. I don't do that. It ain't based on your works, baby. It's not. So I'm not going to talk your head off. I'm going to do another video where it has the prayer. So I'm going to have my vibe and I'm going to have the prayer. And then I'm expecting to hear how God came through for you. Okay? So keep me posted. Email me. Hit me up. Let me know how he came through. Tell me about it. The Lord is hilarious. I'm going to tell y'all my chicken parmesan story in the second video. Because, you know, God is hilarious. God has your back. So start talking to him now and then tell me your testimony. Another thing, too, I want to say, I forgot to mention this. When God starts talking to you, I want you to you're going to develop this relationship with God. And then I want you to, at least once a week, when you're talking to God and you're vibing with God, ask God, what ministry do you want me to be a part of? Have God pick out the ministry. God may have you attend a church. God may have you stream a church. Now, I will say this. Don't have no church bias. When God selects the church or the pastor he wants you to be connected with. So let me tell you something that's super hilarious. God told me in October when I was in prayer time, because I pray every day. I pray every morning to start my day. I pray multiple times throughout the day, but it's nothing really dramatic. It really be like, Lord, help me get through the day, child. But I was in my prayer time in the morning, and God said, there's some stuff I want to tell you, but you got to go to Africa for me to tell you. And I'm like, what? So I went to Africa in November. It was a trip I was planning on doing next year because I already had my end of the year trip planned out. And I'm going to be honest, I spent all my money on Teeny Fest. So your girl really didn't have no extra funds to be doing nothing else. There was like no money to go to this, but I went anyway. And I'm like, I wonder what the Lord has to tell me. There was a location, God said, out of all the activities that you do in Africa, make sure you meet me at this location. I'm like, okay, cool. So when I went to go meet God at this location, we had to go through villages. The road was bumpy. There was no street. It was this rough hill that didn't have like no barricade. And when I was going through to this location to meet God, I said, oh my God, oh my God. I said, the Lord is hiding himself. Sometimes God will hide himself. This is what I think what the Lord is doing now. And he's not hiding from us. But sometimes God will put himself in an unusual place, a place that's not really fabulous or what you're used to. Because when God told me this location, I thought it was going to be like waterfalls and a beautiful background. It wasn't. It was very, very rural, very uncomfortable. It was not what I envisioned in my mind. I really believe God does that because he doesn't want us to be caught on the things, the building, the person, the personality. So I say all that to say, God may send you to a church that may be in the hood. Go to it. He's hiding himself. God may tell you, I want you to stream this person, and you may not like their style. I remember God, when I was going through my health journey, I went to Georgia. I was going to go to Creflo's church. God said, you're going to, she's called Real Talk Kim on social media. So you're going to Pastor Kim's church. I didn't know her like that. And I was like, this social media pastor, what does she know about healing? And I remember the first service I went to, she had the audacity to say that she's never been sick a day in her life. And I said, well, there's nothing she can talk to me about. I had this bias of who she was. I'll say this too, because I don't want to be throwing out names and stuff because, I'm not messy. I'm just trying to tell you, like, don't have church bias because I used to have it. I'm not a big Paula White fan. So one of the first prayer summits that I went to, Paula White was there. I was like, oh, I ain't going to be there for that. I'm just not a big Paula White fan. She does not minister to me. I don't like her style. I'm just not. My girl is Joyce Meyer. So I remember I was like, this night, I will not be there. I was chilling in the hotel room. I think I was doing my hair. My mom called me and said, you better get in here. Paula White is praying over women who have uterine problems. See, I think the Lord be doing this stuff on purpose. God decides the vessel. He decides the pastor. He decides how he wants to do it. Sometimes we want to decide how we do it. He decides it. So ask God, what church, who's the pastor that you're going to be speaking to me through, that we can grow on this together. Don't have no church bias. One of the churches from my hometown, when I tell you these pastors used to get on my nerves, Lord, I used to say, Lord, please, there has to be another pastor in town. Please, why do I have to go to this? Lord forced me to go. I never understood it. I used to have an attitude. I couldn't stand it. I used to cringe. The only people I would talk to were the kids because I don't take stuff out on kids. And I'm so glad that I listened because going to that church, specifically from like 2011 to like 2015, was just preparation to knock my health down. See what the devil does? He tries to create these issues so that you cannot receive to be able to defeat him. I personally believe it was necessary for me to go so that I can fight this with my health. Because the church that I love in Fayetteville, that hold dear to my heart, they don't preach on or teach on healing. So when that diagnosis came, I at least had something to pull from because when you go to church, all you're doing is preparing for war. Like you don't go to church to be friends with the pastor, chill at their house. You don't go for that. You go to hear so that you can prepare for tomorrow. But anyway, talk to God and ask him, who do you want me to listen to? Don't listen to who you like. And it's not based on who you like. It's not based on who's popular, God knows what the devil has planned. So you need to listen to somebody that can get you through. And you may be under their ministry for 5 years, and you may be like, I don't understand why the Lord got me here. But you don't know what he has planned, and you don't know what you need to pull from that person. And the same thing happened when I came to Raleigh. God said, I want you at Elevation. I said, Elevation? You talking about Steve Frederick? I'm like, I don't listen to people that short. I don't trust no short man. Why you got me over here? I couldn't understand it. You better go with who God tell you to go with. God will hide himself in this. If it's a storefront church in the hood, you better go to it and be happy. You can pull from it. And see, when you ride with God and you operate with him and you go to the churches, you go where he tell you to go, there are certain things the devil is not legally allowed to do in your life. He can't do it. And I will say too, when you go to these churches, they're imperfect. Pastors are very imperfect. Pastors are just vessels. Pastors are people who told God yes, and they're just a vessel. They're imperfect. They don't have to be perfect. And I will say this too. I always say the closer you are to God, the easier it is to fall. Because when God starts talking to you, the devil's going to try to challenge everything that God tells you. But that's a whole nother video. I wanted to just do this, practice this. I hope you got something from it. If you need prayer, you can email me here. I'm forming a prayer group again. I'm getting back to doing that. You can send your prayer request here, especially if you're sick or if you know somebody that's sick that's in the hospital, especially if it's a reproductive issue or if it's for a woman. Email me their name, what they're battling with. We're going to be praying for them until they have received the full manifestation of their healing. So we're going to pray. I'm going to do a part 2 video. I hope you got something from this video, and I hope this makes sense. Put this to practice. Send me your testimonies. God is going to come through for you. I do these videos to raise awareness of the church that I'm building in Fayetteville for teenagers called Teeny Church. You can follow us on Instagram. You can hit me up on Instagram. It's a cool concept that God wants to do in Fayetteville, North Carolina, specifically in the 28314 zip code. So God is going to start talking to you. Share me your testimony, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.